So, it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, we're still in the part of the off-season where not much is happening on a day-to-day basis, but the new year is steadily approaching, and moves can still be made, so we definitely still have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Everett, and he says that it would actually be not a bad idea for Donovan Mitchell to stick around in Utah even if they go through a brief rebuild. Well, right as I was working on this video, the news broke about Donovan Mitchell getting traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, so much for that. This is, however, a good opportunity to briefly discuss that trade though, so because this specific take was about the Jazz, I'll analyze the deal from Utah's perspective. In return for Donovan Mitchell, they got 3 completely unprotected first-round picks, 2 opportunities to swap first-round picks in the future, Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and rookie Ochai Agbaji. Additionally, Colin Sexton agreed to a new contract with the team for 4 years worth $72 million, which is something I absolutely love to see after making a video about Colin Sexton's situation a few weeks ago. Sexton is coming into a situation where he'll be their go-to guy, he can continue to develop as a scoring talent, and he's on a team-friendly contract that could end up being traded down the line for even more value for Utah when contenders come calling about Sexton's services close to the trade deadline. The fact that the first-rounders they received are unprotected is also massive, and even though the Cavaliers project to be a very good team for the foreseeable future, nothing is ever guaranteed, and anything can happen, which adds even more value to the selections. If anything, the team that came out the worst in this trade is a team not even involved in it, being the New York Knicks, who seem to be assuming that they would be the ones to land Mitchell only to come away with nothing. Speaking of which, the next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from someone named You Won't Like This Take, which is kind of funny, but he says that RJ Barrett's extension is the only thing that the Knicks did right this offseason. One big thing that happened this week was RJ Barrett signing a contract extension with the Knicks for 4 years and about $120 million, so about $30 million annually. It's not quite a max contract, but it is close, and of course now the discussion turns to whether or not he has earned that kind of money. Barrett is a player that people can't seem to agree on because half of the fans of the league see him as a bright rising star who produces well on both ends of the floor, and the other half emphasize that he is an inefficient scorer and has questionable decision-making at times. He's coming off of a season where he averaged 20 points and 6 rebounds per game, and he also has been a solid perimeter defender, oftentimes defending the opposing team's best player, but he also shoots just 41% from the field and 34% from 3. I personally think Barrett has shown promising strides and is worth the money, he was just paid, but now we have to turn to the other part of the take, stating that this was the only thing that the Knicks did right. One thing I believe the Knicks should have prioritized more was trading away Julius Randle, because his playstyle can be pretty detrimental to those around him, and after 8 years in the league, Randle is who he is. Bringing in Jalen Brunson was a great move from my point of view, because I think he will flourish in a starting point guard role outside of Luka Doncic's shadow, but I don't necessarily like the trio of him, Randle, and RJ Barrett, so the Knicks may not have had a perfect offseason, but this also wasn't the only good thing that they did right either. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from DK, and he says that Damian Lillard is not going to be the same player he used to be when he returns from injury this season. Damian Lillard has been one of the league's premier point guards for years now, as a player who has lit up arenas on a regular basis, leading the way for his Trailblazers team. He has led the Blazers to the conference finals once in his career, but outside of that run, there have been a ton of first-round exits throughout, and despite all of that, he has remained loyal to the franchise, dedicated to helping build a contender there. The truth of the matter, though, is that time is ticking for him and the organization to successfully do this for a variety of reasons. One obvious reason, as the original take states, is that Damian Lillard just suffered an injury last year that forced him to miss 53 games during the season, and while injuries happen and players do successfully return from them, they can hamper a player's future performances. Additionally, one thing not many people really like to talk about is the fact that Lillard is now 32 years old, and before he even got injured last year was having a pretty disappointing season for his own standards, as his production was slipping, so it could be argued that he was already starting to slow down as a player before the injuries even happened. I know we're in the day and age where top players like LeBron James are demonstrating historically great longevity in the league, but that's not normal at all to expect. Most of the time when a player progresses through his early to mid-30s, he slows down and his production decreases. The Trailblazers shook up the makeup of their team this summer in hopes of retooling it around Lillard, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at all if things blow up in Portland because of everything that I just discussed. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Saul, and he says that James Harden is about to have a huge bounce-back season that will help catapult the 76ers into true title contenders. After everything we just discussed with Damian Lillard, a lot of the same things apply to James Harden. He's in his 30s, he's dealt with recent injury, and he showed signs of slowing down individually last season. The difference between the two, though, is that Harden is no longer the guy on his team, as he is now in the sidekick role alongside perennial MVP candidate Joel Embiid, plus he can defer more to rising star Tyrese Maxey, which makes a huge difference in the outlook of his season. Additionally, Harden actually had a full offseason healthy that he was able to spend training properly in anticipation for the season this year, which is something that he was very vocal about not being able to do last summer because of his hamstring injury, so that's another positive for him. The 76ers have the talent to compete at the highest level in the East, but they haven't been able to take that leap yet, and if they want to do so, they need Harden to come back better this year, which there are reasons to believe he can do so, based on what I've already said. Then, on top of that, the Sixers have more capable contributors off of their bench than ever in the Joel Embiid era after trading for DeAnthony Melton and signing Daniel House to add to a bench group that includes Matisse Thybulle, Shake Milton, and George Niang already. The Sixers should definitely be in contention this year, but it will come down to Harden's health and his ability to contribute to those around him if they're going to do so. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.